Hello, and welcome to the video that will speak briefly on religion, science, and philosophy. Religion can be a way for individuals to practice their spiritual beliefs with others of like mind. This practice usually focuses on a supreme being that most of us by one name or another call God, our Creator. The focus is generally a form of worship seeking to please God. This practice generally includes trying to live in the highest way possible, thereby being more likely to please God. A particular religion usually results from a person in a given society or culture whose life so strongly expresses the epitome of righteousness and good, manifested as a life of obedience and service to God, that this person's life stands out as a beacon lighting a path for others to follow in order that they also may please and serve God. When enough people begin to follow the given example, it can take on form as a religion. It becomes a belief to which others subscribe and follow. It has the potential to make the person following it feel extremely close to God. For that particular person, it is worthwhile. In the opinion of this speaker, that which brings a person into opposition with God and or into opposition with the positive vibrations of the greater light is not religion, regardless of what its proponents may believe. However, anything that uplifts a person spiritually and thereby brings them closer to God is very beneficial to that person's being, whether it be a church service, a beautiful song, a beautiful scenic view, or even witnessing or being a part of the love or compassion that one human being can have for another. Such things can fill our heart with love, fill our eyes with tears of joy, and thrill our soul. All are spiritually beneficial because they bring us closer to God. This is especially true when we also feel that wonderful tingle, that special shiver all along our spine. It's very important, and more will be mentioned on that subject later. Religion, one that hopefully does not include teachings designed to forward the policies of unworthy political powers that be, can have the potential to bring many closer to God than they might be without it. The time is fast approaching, however, that we'll see hundreds of millions of people coming to the realization that they don't necessarily need to have a church or a priest or a minister or a preacher or anyone else to act as an intermediary between them and God. They will learn and they can find that they can learn how to reach out to the spark of God that lives within each of us and experience the inexpressible joy of receiving a response. If learning how to bring about such a profound experience in your own life is of interest to you, then you're encouraged to watch and study all of the information in the teachings and books that are being brought out in this series of videos. If you watch and listen carefully, you'll find that they contain a great deal of the basic information that you will need, and possibly even more, perhaps somewhat like a roadmap or a guidebook, to begin to take your first steps on this long and difficult but very worthwhile journey. Let us now consider a few points on the subject of science. The field of science in our modern world has taken amazing steps forward in the last 100 years or so. The scientific advancements just in medicine and electronics are almost mind-boggling in their scope, and there doesn't seem to be any let-up in the foreseeable future. Consider the personal computer and the impact that it's already had on our society, not to mention what's ahead. Look at what's happened with the internet accessible in the early days by desktop computers, then by portable laptop computers, and now the internet is even available to those with a portable telephone, which is small enough to fit in your pocket. Who can foresee what the years just ahead may hold for us in these areas of scientific accomplishment and technology? On the other side of the coin, however, our science of today, if it has a fault, and it most certainly does, it is that science cannot, by its own rules, admit or agree to the existence of those things which it cannot somehow measure or conclusively prove, usually in the laboratory. These proofs are generally sought either through experiments with results that can be reproduced in a laboratory again and again, or by some other means that will provide proof to the satisfaction of the scientific community. Those areas of investigation where proof does not always come so quickly or so easily usually involve things which science today does not fully understand. Sadly, this can exclude a great many things, especially those things related to spiritual matters. For many scientists, it may even exclude God. The speaker remembers a sad occasion many, many years ago when a student in a country that then discouraged belief in God made the statement, "Why do you need God when you have science?" If he only knew that without God there would be no existence, and thereby no science. For a person to make a statement such as that student made, given the state of scientific knowledge at that time, would be somewhat like someone in the 1800s stating that science in those days had discovered all worthwhile knowledge and that there was nothing left to discover. For those with greater understanding, that statement is no more ridiculous than the statement made by the student about God. The more that science learns, the closer it will come to the realization that nothing exists without God. Of course, medicine and electronics are not the only areas that have had almost miraculous growth in recent times. Our planet is changing and shrinking very rapidly, as is demonstrated by another area where great progress has been made: the onset of space travel. Many of us have been blessed over the years to see these changes taking place within our own lifetimes. How many of us who were around back at that time did not watch the early manned rocket launchings with wide eyes and bated breath? One particular aspect of manned spaceflight that is extremely interesting is the speed with which the astronauts circle the globe, indeed making our planet seem to shrink and become smaller from that perspective. More importantly, another associated development has also taken place, and you can be fairly certain that it was not foreseen by the scientists. That particular development is a significant unexpected benefit to mankind, a serendipity some might call it. It is the fact that the astronauts from any orbital mission, no matter what country they were from, could not help but notice, as their craft circled the Earth, that when they looked down at our planet, it appeared similar to a globe such as one might see in the average classroom. However, this was the real thing, and it had no map lines drawn all over it. It was a single entity, one planet, providing a home for all of its residents. And there were no map lines dividing us. We, its people, the people of this earth, do not have separating lines and boundaries drawn all over our home planet, just over our maps and our minds and our own hearts. From the vantage point of the astronauts orbiting our planet, the lines and boundaries that separate us simply disappear. We, the people of this fragile home, must learn to erase those separating lines and boundaries from our minds and hearts as well, and, like the astronauts, see our world as it really is. We must recognize and acknowledge that in God's eyes we're all His children. We're all brothers and sisters. We're all one. We're all members of the same family. If you're a parent, then you know that even though there are differences in each of your children, both in appearance and behavior, you nevertheless love each and all of them, and you know how much it saddens you and hurts you to see them when one of them expresses anger or hatred one to another. Even if your children are not yet mature enough to realize the importance of the fact that having the same parents makes them brothers and sisters, that it makes them a part of the same family, you nevertheless do not give up trying, sometimes subtly, sometimes using sterner measures, to teach them that love and patience and tolerance are the ways one should express oneself to other members of the family. That principle deserves our careful consideration, since we are all the children of God. We are all in His family. If we truly seek to serve and please God, who has such a revered place in our hearts, then despite whatever differences we perceive among ourselves, we must strive to see this planet as our home and see ourselves as one family, as one people. That is worth your very serious consideration. Let's leave that subject now and discuss the subject of philosophy before we end this video. Excuse me. There have been a number of persons over the centuries who have expressed their questions, thoughts, and ideas concerning humankind and its presence on this planet. They've stated in various ways their opinions about many aspects of our lives here. Quite a number of them have asked, and some have even attempted to provide answers to many of life's questions. These are questions that over the years have puzzled the minds of thinking men and women everywhere. There was a particular period in the past, almost 2,500 years ago, when ancient Greece seemed to have a near monopoly on such thinking. A great many very significant questions, thoughts, and ideas were put into writing during that time, and thankfully many of them are still around, as close as your local public library or the internet, for our consideration today. It's been said that Plato may have been the first to use the term philosophy, which is described as the love of knowledge. It is easy for us to see why those of that day who loved knowledge and sought to find, through their thinking and their writing, answers to many of the important questions of life, would come to be called philosophers. The word has, over time, taken on additional connotations, such that many of the thoughts, ideas, and expressions that someone may have about life have come to be called their own personal philosophy of life. If the opportunity should present itself to read synopses of some of the writings from that early period in Greece, you're likely to find that the time it would take would be time very well spent. Look carefully, and you should find that some of these writers have quietly and subtly woven the thread of a particular concept through many of their writings. That concept concerns the idea of reincarnation. Not that of humans returning as lower animal forms, but of advancing to higher levels of human spiritual development. The soul personality, through many incarnations, gradually unfolds like the petals of a rose, manifesting ever greater beauty as its innermost parts slowly become more visible, and allow the beauty of the inner person, the higher self, to become more and more outwardly visible as that person, through many lifetimes of right thinking, right living, and making right decisions, continues to advance and grow spiritually. This outward visibility should not necessarily be interpreted to mean outer physical beauty, but instead should be thought of as the beauty of the inner person showing itself outwardly in many ways, including the manifestation of a more universal kind of love, compassion, tolerance, and humanitarian thinking, among other things, as a part of the life experiences of that particular personality. When someone from more recent times has offered their thinking regarding the problems and questions that concern our lives today, we've had a tendency to generalize this as philosophizing also. Some may call it modern philosophy, or even speaking of one's own personal philosophy of life, as we mentioned earlier. There are people today who, however, who believe that the relatively near future will reveal, among other things, many needed philosophical thoughts and ideas about life on our planet. A significant number of these thoughts and ideas will be specifically concerned with spirituality, science, and government. These will be ideas that have been inspired for the benefit of humankind and will, in fact, change the world as we know it. There will be a great many people who will unwisely but openly and forcefully oppose some of these ideas. They will resist needed change with all their might. Hundreds and hundreds of millions, however, having their minds and hearts touched and resonated by the deep wisdom within these ideas, will overwhelmingly bring about the institution of much needed changes. The amount of time that it will take to implement these changes may be more or it may be less, but that is not as important as the fact that the changes will come, and our planet and its people will benefit greatly from them. Since we all stepped across the cosmic threshold into a new millennium several years ago, have you given any thought to the possibility of such changes and how you might reconcile them with your own philosophy of life? If not, perhaps you should give these ideas some consideration, because some of the events that will eventually bring about these changes have already begun to manifest themselves in very significant ways. I want to thank you now for watching. I encourage you to watch the next video on the subject of politics from a spiritual perspective. Again, thank you.